The moment, there's a thing my grandmother used to say when the weather would turn suddenly in the village. It's been building, this she would say. You'd look up and the sky would be one colour and you'd swear it came from nowhere, but she'd have been watching the cattle move to the low ground for hours. That's what this chart looks like. The excommunication of 6 bishops of the Society of St. Pius X on July 3rd, 2026 did not come from nowhere. It has been building and the sky has been showing the strain for months. Lay the event chart over Vatican City at noon that day, and the first thing to notice is where the action sits. Mars, the planet of decisive action, the will that cuts, and Uranus, the planet of sudden reversal, shock and rupture, are both in Gemini, the sign of the written word, the declaration, the legal communication. Both sit in the 9th house, which in mundane astrology governs religion, law, courts, and the church's own internal governance. This is quite literally a written religious judgment delivered with the force of institutional will. Mars gives the decree its teeth, Uranus gives it its shock. The excommunication arrives as a document, canon law applied, and it arrives suddenly. But here is the tension, and it is worth slowing down for. Jupiter, the planet that rules religion, ecclesiastical law, and the courts, sits at the very first degree of Leo, the sign of sovereignty and kingship. This is papal power at its most regal. Pope Leo XIV asserting that Rome alone decides who may wear a bishop's mitre and who may not. Yet Jupiter makes an exact quincunx, an angle of misalignment, a rubbing against the grain, to the true node, which represents the collective's evolutionary direction. The plain reading, the act is legally correct, canonically sound, but it sits slightly askew from where the broader current of history is flowing. Rome has the right. The right does not quite resolve the wound. And Jupiter squares Chiron, the planet of the unhealable wound, the sore that keeps reopening, within 1/5 of a degree. When religious authority flexes its sovereign muscle, something old and tender breaks open again. That sore has a name, 1988, Écon, Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. The last time this sect consecrated bishops without Rome's permission, and the last time Rome excommunicated them for it. The Chiron trine to the south node, also tight, within 1/3 of a degree, confirms the echo. The south node is the past, the inherited pattern, the road already walked. An old wound flowing forward from an old moment. The same place, the same act, the same response. If it feels like a repetition, that is because it is, but repetition, it should be said, is not the same as resolution. What it touches. Now, what does this moment touch in the Vatican's own foundations? The Holy See's founding chart dates from February 11th, 1929, the Lateran Treaty that established Vatican City as a sovereign state, a birth born of a compromise between the papacy and the Italian state after decades of tension. When the event sky is laid over that 1929 chart, the tightest transit is transiting Pluto, forming a sextile, a working alliance, to the Vatican's natal Uranus, exact within 1/10 of a degree. Pluto is deep institutional transformation, the death and rebuilding of structures, the power blocks that operate beneath the surface. Uranus is sudden change, rupture, reform. A sextile says these two energies are cooperating. So the deep structural forces of this era are working in concert with the Vatican's own capacity for institutional change. This is not something being done to the Church from outside. It is something the Church's own reformist impulse is generating from within. The excommunication is Rome's Pluto-Uranus moment. A radical pruning that the institution itself at some level has been moving toward. Chiron the wound trines the Vatican's natal Neptune, the planet that rules the Church's mystical body, its spiritual nature, its capacity for collective devotion and dream. A trine is a flowing, harmonious aspect. The wound and the Church's spiritual essence are in alignment, which sounds paradoxical until one remembers that in the Church's own theology, the wound and the healing are the same body. Christ's wounds are the source of grace. In that light, the excommunication is a surgical cut made in the interest of the body's health. But surgery is still surgery, it still bleeds. Turn to Pope Leo XIV's own chart, born September 14th, 1955, and the picture sharpens in a way that demands careful attention. The single tightest transit to his chart is transiting Chiron, forming an exact square to his natal Chiron, precise to the degree. This is what astrologers call a Chiron square, a moment when an old wound resurfaces and insists on being reckoned with. It is not a light signature. For the Pope, it means this act of excommunication is not a cold administrative procedure. It costs him personally. The Chiron square sits on his shoulders like a weight. He is reopening a wound he may have carried since the original 1988 crisis, when he was a young priest of 33 and the Lefebvre schism tore through the church he had given his life to. If anyone imagines the Pope signing this decree with a steady, indifferent hand, the astrology says otherwise, and the transits accumulate around that wound. Transiting Jupiter, the planet of his own religious authority, his office, his power to bind and loose, opposes his natal Chiron within 1/3 of a degree. The expansion of his authority confronts his vulnerability. The true node, the south node, and Lilith, the point of the excluded, the disowned, the shadow, all touch his Chiron within 1/3 of a degree as well. This is a man whose wound point is being activated from every direction simultaneously. Whatever Leo XIV feels as he signs the decree, it is not triumph. It is closer to the card the old readers call judgment, the angel blowing the trumpet, the dead rising, the book opened. It is a reckoning, not a celebration. The synastry between the Vatican and the Pope, the relationship between the institution and the man who heads it, reveals the deeper structural tension. The Vatican's Mars, the institution's assertive will, its capacity for decisive action, sits exactly on the Pope's south node, which represents past karma, old patterns, the path of least resistance. The institutional machinery is pressing the Pope toward a familiar response. Draw the line, excommunicate, repeat what Rome did in 1988. But the Vatican's Mars also opposes his true node, his evolutionary direction, where he is meant to go by the same tight orb. The institution's will pushes against his own trajectory. He acts because the institution demands it, but the act itself may run against his grain. This is the tension of a man who may have been elected to transcend the old pattern and finds himself repeating it instead. And yet, and this is the counterweight that keeps the picture from tipping into bleakness, the Vatican's Pluto trines the Pope's Saturn within 4/10 of a degree. Pluto is deep power, the force of institutional death and rebirth. Saturn is duty, structure, the weight of office. The institution's deepest transformative force supports his sense of duty and his capacity to carry the structure. He is not alone in this. The weight of the Vatican's own Pluto, its capacity for radical renewal, flows through him, under him, behind him. If the Chiron says this hurts, the Pluto-Saturn trine says he has the structural support to bear it. One more tension worth naming. The Vatican's moon, its emotional body, the feeling life of the institution, opposes the Pope's Mars, his action drive. The Church's emotional instinct may be toward the long patience that has marked Vatican-SSPX relations for decades, the quiet diplomacy, the whispered negotiations, the hope that time would do what decree could not. But the Pope's Mars pushes toward action, toward decision, toward the line being drawn now. The opposition is tight enough to be a real factor. This decision was not made without internal resistance, and the resistance came from the Church's own feeling nature, not from any external opponent. Now bring in the Society of St. Pius X's own chart, founded on November 1st, 1970, All Saints' Day, a feast celebrating the entire communion of saints, either a beautiful irony or a deliberate statement, depending on how one reads it. The transits to their chart at the time of the excommunication are quietly revealing. Transiting Pluto, the planet of deep institutional transformation, forms a sextile to their natal moon within 1/10 of a degree. The moon in a mundane chart is the emotional body, the sense of belonging, the people. Pluto's harmonious aspect to their moon suggests that this deep, disruptive period of history is reinforcing their internal cohesion, not weakening it. The excommunication may bind the sect more tightly together. Persecution, or the perception of it, is the oldest fuel in the sectarian tank. Transiting Neptune trines their natal moon as well, so ideology and the collective dream flow with their sense of who they are. They feel the spirit of the age on their side. And the event's Sun trines their Mercury, the planet of communication. The spotlight of this moment actually helps their message travel further. This is worth marking carefully. The SSPX is not diminished by this event in the way a surface reading might assume. The astrology suggests their communication sharpens, their resolve hardens, and their narrative, that they are the faithful remnant cast out by a modernist Rome, gains traction rather than losing it. The synastry between the SSPX and the Vatican is the most telling piece of all. The SSPX's true node opposes the Vatican's Neptune, and their south node conjoins it. The south node is the past, the old pattern, the road already travelled. Neptune is the Church's spiritual essence, its mysticism, its dream, its communion with the divine. The SSPX's past, its old pattern, sits directly on the Vatican's spiritual nature. In plain terms, the breakaway sect is not foreign to Rome. It is Rome's own shadow, the version of Catholicism that Rome carries in its own spiritual DNA and cannot cast off without amputating something living. The excommunication is not a clean separation. It is an attempt to sever something that is organically connected. This is why it keeps recurring. This is why 1988 did not finish it, and this is why 2026 may not either. How it rolls forward. So where does this go? The weeks and months after July 3rd carry an extraordinary cluster of outer planet aspects, 6 major alignments firing off between July 15th and July 25th alone, that will shape how this fracture develops. In the immediate aftermath, Uranus sextiles Neptune on July 15th and trines Pluto on July 18th. The plain translation, the forces of sudden reform and ideological shift are working in cooperation with deep institutional transformation. For the Church, this means the period immediately following the excommunication is not a holding pattern but an active, fast-moving phase. Changes that might ordinarily take months to develop could surface in weeks. Expect responses from both sides, statements, counter-statements, perhaps further disciplinary actions to arrive in quick succession. The most telling moment comes on July 20th, when Jupiter both trines Neptune and opposes Pluto on the same day. The trine says papal authority flows with the collective spiritual dream. There is a window where the Pope's decision seems to align with what the broader Catholic community wants, or at least accepts, or at least is too tired to resist. But the opposition, exact hours later, says his authority confronts the deep power structures, the entrenched forces of institutional Catholicism, the blocks of money and influence, the diplomatic relationships, the cardinal-matial networks that operate beneath the surface. This is the moment to watch. The Pope may find that the excommunication, while canonically clean, triggers resistance from powers within the Church that he did not anticipate. A statement from a major bishops' conference, a financial withdrawal, a quiet diplomatic protest from a government with historically Catholic identity. These are the kinds of developments this signature tends to produce. Jupiter trines Saturn on August 31st, meaning religious authority and institutional structure flow together. This is consolidation. If the Pope can navigate the turbulence of July and August, September brings a period where his legal religious power and the institutional machinery of the Roman Curia align. The decree holds, the institutional settlement begins to take its permanent shape. But the eclipses frame the longer arc, and they tell a story that does not resolve in a neat bow. The solar eclipse on August 12th in Leo, the sign of papal sovereignty, opens a new chapter in how papal authority is exercised and perceived. This may manifest as a further exercise of papal power, new restrictions on traditionalist communities beyond the SSPX, a broader tightening of liturgical discipline, a restructuring of the Ecclesia Dei Commission that oversees relations with traditionalist groups. Or it may manifest as a challenge to that authority, a countermove from within the College of Cardinals, or from other traditionalist bodies who read the excommunication as a signal that they are next. The eclipse does not say which. It says the question of who holds sovereign authority over the Church's liturgy and its bishops is far from settled. The lunar eclipse on August 28th in Pisces brings the matter to the emotional collective. Pisces is the sign of the mystical body, the oceanic sense of communion, the dissolved boundaries between self and other. A lunar eclipse here is about emotional culmination, how the broader Catholic community finally feels about the rupture. It may bring a wave of grief, a sense of loss, of a family torn, or it may bring a wave of relief, a sense that the wound had to be lanced, that the ambiguity was worse than the cut. More likely it brings both at once, and the Church must hold the contradiction without pretending it is simple. The tarot card that sits with this is the moon, not the catastrophe of the tower, but the long disorientation of walking through a landscape where nothing is quite what it seems, where old paths look different in the changed light. The Church's collective emotional body will need time to find its footing after this. By late November, when Uranus trines Pluto again, the deeper structural transformation continues, but now in a more cooperative key. The forces of reform and the forces of deep institutional change are working together rather than in tension. This suggests that by the close of 2026, the Church may have moved through the acute crisis of the excommunication and into a more stable, if permanently altered, relationship with its traditionalist wing. Stable in this context does not mean healed. It means the new shape of the fracture has set like a bone, and both sides are learning to live with the geometry of the break. What to watch concretely as this rolls forward. First, whether the SSPX's consecrations continue or escalate. The astrology of their chart, with Pluto sextile their moon and Neptune trine their moon, suggests their resolve hardens rather than softens. Additional illicit consecrations in the months following would be entirely consistent with the pattern. Second, whether other traditionalist groups, such as the Fraternity of St. Peter, the Institute of Christ the King, and the various Benedictine foundations that celebrate the Old Rite, read this excommunication as a warning shot and begin to distance themselves from Rome, or whether they fall silent, or whether they move closer to the SSPX in solidarity. The solar eclipse in Leo on August 12th suggests this question of who else falls under the shadow of the decree will surface by mid-August. Third, whether Pope Leo XIV's health or stamina becomes a matter of public discussion. The exact Chiron square to his natal chart at the time of the event and the accumulation of Chiron transits from multiple directions suggests this moment takes a real personal toll. Any visible sign of fatigue, absence, or withdrawal from public duties in the weeks following would be astrologically consistent. Fourth, whether the July 20th period, when Jupiter opposes Pluto, brings a concrete institutional confrontation, such as a public letter from a dissenting cardinal, a financial withdrawal from the Vatican by a major donor network sympathetic to the traditionalist cause, or a diplomatic protest from a government with a historically Catholic identity. And fifth, whether the August 28th lunar eclipse in Pisces brings a significant pastoral response, like a letter from bishops to their flocks, a pastoral initiative from the Pope addressing the emotional fallout, or a public statement from the SSPX leadership that reframes their position for a new phase. There is one more thread worth naming. because it sits underneath everything else. The 1988 schism was eventually partially healed when Benedict XVI lifted the excommunications in 2009, though the theological disputes remained unresolved and the SSPX's canonical status stayed irregular. The Astrology of 2026 suggests no such healing is imminent this time. The Chiron signatures are too raw, the Pluto-Uranus signatures too active, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction too fresh. This is not a moment for reconciliation. It is a moment for a clean, if painful, line to be drawn, and for both sides to live with the consequences of that line for years to come. If there is a card for that, it is the Five of Swords, the one who wins the field but knows the victory has cost something that cannot be measured in triumph. The Pope has canon law on his side. The SSPX has the momentum of its own narrative. Both have lost something the other cannot restore. The tower has fallen. What rises in its place is the work of the months and years to come, and the sky says that work has barely begun. Summary: the excommunication of 6 SSPX bishops on July 3, 2026 is a papal tower moment, an act of sovereign religious authority that is canonically correct, historically inevitable, and personally costly. Driven by a once-in-4 decades fusion of institutional power and ideological confrontation, landing in a period of unusually high cyclic tension that ensures the rupture will reverberate for months rather than resolve quickly. Here is what to watch as this unfolds. Watch the SSPX's response in the weeks following. Transiting Pluto sextile their natal moon at 1/10 of a degree suggests their internal cohesion hardens rather than dissolves, so expect defiance and possibly further illicit consecrations, not contrition. Next, watch for institutional resistance to the Pope around July 20th. The Jupiter opposition to Pluto on that date signals that papal authority meets deep entrenched power blocks within the Church. A public dissent from a cardinal, a bishop's conference statement, or a financial diplomatic backlash would fit this signature. You will also want to watch the Pope's personal bearing through July and August. The exact Chiron square to his natal chart means this decision takes a visible personal toll, so any sign of fatigue, absence, or withdrawal from public duties would be astrologically consistent. Watch for a second exercise of papal authority by mid-August. The solar eclipse in Leo on August 12th in the sign of papal sovereignty opens a new chapter that may extend the crackdown beyond the SSPX to other traditionalist bodies, or alternatively trigger a countermove from within the Curia. Watch the broader Catholic community's emotional response at the end of August. The lunar eclipse in Pisces on August 28th brings the question of communal grief and belonging to its peak. A major pastoral letter, a bishop's reckoning, or a public statement from the SSPX leadership reframing their position for a new phase is the kind of development this signature tends to produce. Finally, watch for institutional consolidation by September. The Jupiter trine Saturn on August 31st suggests the Pope's authority and the Curia's machinery align. If that alignment holds, the structural settlement of the fracture begins to take its permanent, if unhealed, shape. The line has been drawn in Econ as it was drawn 38 years before, but the sky says this is not the closing of the fracture, it is the opening of a new and harder phase of it, and both Rome and the remnant will be living in its shadow long after the headlines of July have faded. Recent history and where this is heading. The Vatican's move doesn't happen in isolation. It sits inside a much larger pattern, the slow grinding of outer planets that quietly shapes events far beyond the Church. The key cycle is Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 degrees Aries, a roughly 36-year meeting of the planet of structure and the planet of dissolution and belief, symbolizing old institutions and ideologies being broken down and rebuilt. The same backdrop colours political realignments, institutional crises, and ideological boundary drawing across the globe. A supporting Saturn-Uranus sextile, the planet of order meeting the planet of disruption, reinforces the dynamic, authority forced into contact with its challengers rather than able to simply ignore them. July 20th deserves watching. Jupiter opposes Pluto, a clash that tends to concentrate power and test who actually holds it, while simultaneously trining Neptune, adding ideological fervour. For the Vatican, that suggests authority meeting quiet resistance from entrenched financial and diplomatic blocs. By late August, Jupiter trines Saturn, a marker that tends to settle turbulent arrangements into something more solid, a schism in the church, a political rupture elsewhere, a financial upheaval on another continent. These look unrelated. Underneath, they share the same weather. Before you go. If this has stirred something, and I suspect it may have because these things rarely land as just news, then let me offer two paths that might help you sit with whatever's risen. First, a progression reading. This looks at how your own natal chart has quietly shifted and deepened over the years, the inner growth you might not have noticed happening, the themes that keep returning in new forms. If the story of an old wound reopening, of a pattern repeating across decades, of the tension between what you've always done and where you're actually meant to go, if any of that resonates, a progression reading can show you the arc. Whether you're truly moving forward or walking a familiar circle, sometimes seeing the shape of your own evolution is the difference between repetition and resolution. And then a standard tarot reading, specifically the Shadow Work spread. 5 cards that explore the mask we wear, the wound beneath it, and the gift hidden in the dark. This whole event we've just sat with is shadow work. When you think about it, institutions wearing legal masks, old wounds breaking through, the disowned pressing for recognition. If you're carrying something similar, a family pattern that won't stay buried, a fracture you've had to live with, a line you drew that still aches, this spread offers a gentle, honest way to look at what's underneath. Not to fix it, just to see it clearly. Which, as my grandmother used to say, is usually where the whole thing starts to turn. Both are available at Occultic. Whenever the moment feels right, no hurry. The sky will keep turning either way. Seeker, this is the Mandala spread, 9 cards from the Smith-Waite deck, laid for the Vatican's excommunication of 6 SSPX bishops on Friday, the 3rd of July, 2026, a full moon in Aquarius day with Mercury retrograde in Cancer, Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, and 6 outer planet aspects firing through mid-July. As I set out in the chart I read earlier, this is a tower moment for both Rome and the SSPX. A lightning strike, not a conversation. The cards ask what the rupture costs and where it goes next. Self/core issue, 5 of Pentacles. The core wound is exile. 5 of Pentacles is Mercury in Taurus, the mind fixed on loss with Mercury retrograde in Cancer. The decree is a sentence reread, not settled. Rome and the SSPX bishops stand on opposite sides of the lit window. Beside the 2 of Cups, the ache for reunion is real. Ambitions, 2 of Cups. You reach for a marriage of opposites. 2 of Cups is Venus in Cancer, the card of affinity, but Venus in Leo is void of course until the 9th of July, so gestures of communion coast. The hope that canon law can bind the wound is lovely and unlikely. Beside the moon, the union desired is half imagined. Ideals/realization, the moon. The ideal is not clarity, it is the disorienting truth beneath. The moon rules Pisces, the sign of August's lunar eclipse and the church's mystical body. What looks like a clean excommunication is a path between towers in reflected light. Nothing here is only what it seems. Across from the 8 of Cups, the only way through is to keep walking. Dependencies, Ace of Swords. You lean on the cutting word. Ace of Swords is the root of air, the element of Gemini, where Mars and Uranus sit in the 9th house of canon law. A decree severs but cannot heal. Mercury retrograde in Cancer means fine print is revisited. Beside 5 of Pentacles, the sword has left 2 outside. Faults/challenges. Ace of Pentacles. The fault is mistaking correctness for resolution. Ace of Pentacles is the seed of Earth, Taurus gold that looks like a promise. Yet Jupiter in Leo squares Chiron, so the legal win reopens the wound. At the mandala's center, it touches every card. The belief that power or protocol can buy peace is the shared blindness. Strengths/assets. Ace of Wands. Your spark is the courage to begin again. Ace of Wands is the root of fire, Aries, the sign where Saturn and Neptune met in February, fusing authority and ideology into a confrontational key. The Pope's bold line is fuel, not just force. Beside the Ace of Pentacles, energy outruns the caution of protocol. Anxieties/fears. 8 of Cups. The fear is that leaving the old cups behind is loss, not progress. 8 of Cups is Saturn in Pisces, the sign of the August lunar eclipse and the Church's oceanic grief. The Pope's exact Chiron square says this departure costs him. Opposite the moon, the walk into the unknown mirrors that path. External environment. Queen of Pentacles. The world around you is an institution trying to stay solvent and motherly. Queen of Pentacles is Capricorn, the throne of Earth, Saturn's house, holding the Vatican's ledger and garden. Pluto sextiles the Vatican's natal Uranus now, so reform and disruption work together. Opposite the 2 of Cups, care is administered, not tender.
Hopes/wishes. 2 of Wands. You secretly long to see around the corner. 2 of Wands is Mars in Aries, the Lord on his battlement holding the world. The July 20th Jupiter-Pluto opposition tests whether Leo's sovereignty can command deep power blocks. It looks like dominion. It feels like Alexander's sadness. Beside the Queen of Pentacles, ambition meets institutional gravity.
Summary. This is not a spread of tidy endings. The mandala's center is a gold coin mistaken for peace. Its edges are fire and Piscean fog, and the whole picture turns under the full moon's glare. What the Vatican has done is draw a line. What the cards ask is whether anyone can yet cross it. May the reading serve your seeing.